Yeah, Ancient Mahari here. Are you somebody with codependency who's been in a relationship with someone with borderline personality or even a narcissist? Are you a person with codependency who's still in that relationship, or it's on again, off again, and maybe you don't know? Well, here's something that you need to know or think more about if you already kind of intellectually know this, but you're not working it through to emotional understanding. People with BPD. So lots of people with codependency, more so with people with BPD than narcissists, right? You end up feeling like, well, but they have BPD. And, even for the people that do recognize what I'm saying, and many other experts, way more, way more, well-known and famous, I'm not either of those things, are saying BPD is a response to adverse childhood experience. So people understand this, and whether you think it's like, what the American Pseudoscience of Psychiatry says or not, or you recognize it in a more humanistic context way, which a lot of people do because they really care about the people with, the person with BPD in their life that has hurt them so much. A lot of people still really care. And maybe some of that still is codependency, but it is what it is, right? And so we can't pretend that that's not the case for a lot of people. So, and there's various ways of moving through that and etc., but it can be quite a while that people still care. So, a lot of people with codependency are like, okay, but they have BPD, the partner or a parent or a sibling or a family member, or maybe it's a friend, any relationship type. They have BPD and you feel sorry for them. You pity them. It's like this sort of unhealthy empathy dump that is really more about what you need than anything that's going to help them or matter to them, because people with BPD have to find their own way to therapy and the long-term journey that can end up in, yes, being healed and being recovered. And that means people with, who've had BPD and do take that long journey, as I have, we get to a place where, no, we are not still splitting. We are not still, quote, borderline at all. And even people working their way through a lot of therapy right now will change a lot about the splitting and the cycles, etc. But that may take 3-4 years worth of work. It's very individual. But this is not something to hang your hat on that it's going to save a relationship. Not at all. So many people are basically in their codependency, self-abandoning self, to acquiesce to the idea, to the thought, to the feeling, to the caring, to what I'm going to call here the unhealthy empathy dump of, but they have BPD and they can't help it. So what? So what's the next thing to come? So I can't leave them? So I got to stick around so they can't make it without me? All of which can be externalized statements about that if you turn them around, they can fit for the person with codependency as well. If not, it can be both, or it could be either or on some statements people might make. But it's really important to know that whatever you do think, however you do feel about that person with BPD that is or was in your life, or the other relationship types, parents, family members, or a parent with BPD or NPD, and a family member with BPD or NPD, and like, people often still have to go no contact, because in all relationship types with people with BPD, and of course people with narcissistic personality even more so, there's no way that these can be healthy. There's no way that they can work out. There's no way to change that person with BPD. And the thing is, so then why are people with codependency having that bond response and or often freeze response, but they have BPD and they can't help it? So unhealthy empathy dump. Because what about you? They have BPD and they can't help it, so I have to acquiesce, like, they need me, or I have to keep caring, or I'll feel way too guilty. I'll feel like a terrible person if I were just to take care of myself, because what about them? So that's the core of the the unhealthy relational pattern of codependency, which goes something like, if you were consciously aware of it, quote, the codependent would say, if you could say what you're repressing, you would say, I am unworthy, I am not worth love, I am not worthwhile, I don't deserve love, therefore I will empathy dump. I'll feel sorry for this person with BPD, and I'll hang in there because what's the codependent next line? Belief, thought. I will help them somehow, or something will change somehow. But while you're so busy with what about them, if I were to leave, if I were to take care of me, what about them because they can't help it? Well, like I said in a video recently, they can't help it probably because they need therapy to help it. But if they don't go get therapy, they're making a choice, whether they know it or not, and to stay the same. And that means they can't help it, whatever their behavior, the way that they're verbally awful to you, etc. And what they can't help is not your responsibility. So if you're doing this unhealthy empathy dump on somebody with BPD in your life right now, in any relationship type, what I would ask you to ask yourself, journal this down on a piece of paper. And when I say me, I mean you, right? What about me? So in other words, what about you? Write down on a piece of paper, you out there, if this resonates with you, what about me? Because I'm not talking about what about me, it's what about you? Too many people with codependency, because of the way that you develop codependency and the reasons for it in your childhood, which you may well not be aware of right now. You need to get into a healing and recovery journey to understand that part, and the person with BPD needs to get into their own healing and recovery journey and a lot of therapy long term, which then can produce real change, because neuroplasticity is real, and part of that doesn't matter what the pseudoscience of psychiatry says about BPD, because they never talk about it in a framework that includes neuroplasticity and how effective treatment really is when people will engage it. And then people with BPD can heal and recover, be recovered, ED, past tense. And what's that mean? It means, well, they become like everyone else, averagely mentally healthy, or, however we measure that. But people with BPD after recovery are not going to still be splitting and such at all. But here's the thing. You can't spend another minute of your life without continuing to abandon yourself and being what about them? Oh, well, but they can't help it. They have BPD, and so what? Because what about you? You are somebody with codependency. If you're acquiescing to a BPD, you're doing the unhealthy empathy dump, which is really something, it really has to do with something that you really feel about yourself, projected onto the person with BPD. Whether they can help it or not doesn't matter, because it's their responsibility to deal with whether they decide to help it or not. But it's not your responsibility to stay there on the other side of that, to hold yourself back from your own healing and recovery journey. It's not your responsibility to feel so sorry for them, acquiesce so much to the person with BPD, that you are continuing to abandon you. It's your time now. It's long since been your time to get into a healing and recovery journey. I'm out here to work with you if you resonate with me, or whoever you would choose to work with. Just make sure they're a professional. And the other thing is, it's your time now to learn how to fly. First, love yourself. Because people with codependency, no matter what kind of relationship dynamics you're in with somebody with BPD or a narcissist or what have you, in any relationship type, you come second, because that's what you learned in your childhood somehow, in some way, fashion, or other. It's not always the same causation for everybody with codependency. But you are so used to being unimportant, you feel unworthy, you have low self-esteem, and much more going on, that for people with varying degrees of codependency, you have a dysfunctional relationship which has separated you from self to some degree. That's what you need to take care of right now. So when people say, but they have BPD and they can't help it, one way to look at that, and I hope this motivates people with codependency, is why I'm saying it like this, turn that around and say, I have codependency and I can't seem to help it. Take responsibility for what you're likely projecting out on the person with BPD, even if it's true that they can't help it. That's up to them to help it or not help it. What's up to you with codependency and, healing and recovering from this and these relationships and finding your way to healthy relating and a healthy relationship with yourself is you making a choice that is simply, firstly, recognizing there's a question that you need to ask yourself. What about me? And when I say that, I mean for you to say, what about me, to yourself? Because you need to come first in your life. That's not narcissistic or selfish. That's what's required for people to heal the unhealthy relational patterns that are what codependency is painfully so much about. Codependency is very, very painful. And when you're going to make a choice and take action on getting into recovery, it's going to be challenging. And that's why you need to work with somebody who really knows how to help you. And I'm someone out here who really knows how to help you, if I resonate with you. So the point is, don't acquiesce to this person with BPD. You've been acquiescing all your life. Something happened in your childhood where you just learned to sort of like put everybody else first, or put the other person first, worry about what everybody thinks about you, and these types of things, when really it's time now. It was a long time ago that it would have really been in your best interest. It's time for you to get to know you. It's time for you to find self-esteem and self-worth in you. It's time for you to heal the woundedness of codependency. So please don't spend another day of your life or minute of your life, if you resonate with what I'm saying here, feeling sorry for the borderline because they can't help it. Because whether they can help it or not, like I said, it's up to them to deal with that. That's their responsibility. So separate that out. They're not your responsibility. You are your own responsibility. And if you turn that, they have BPD and they can't help it, turn that around to yourself today. Say this to yourself and see how you feel, if this resonates with you. I am a codependent, and I don't know how to help it. I hurt. I don't know why, maybe you would say, but I hurt, and I don't know how to help it. I can't help it. What can I do to help myself? Because that's where you have choice. That's where you can make choices and you can empower yourself in working with someone to help you and guide you and help you to find the answers that you're looking for inside in a healing and recovery journey from codependency. So that unhealthy empathy dump to the borderline where they have BPD and they can't help it is really a codependent way of, again, negating self. Because it's really you, if you have codependency, you resonate with this. It's really you that can't help it. And it's really, whatever with them, but they have to take care of themselves, for the better or the worse. And you need to take care of yourself. And you need to find your way to what's blocking you from your I can't help it, to go forward into a healing recovery journey so you can heal the codependency, which is a dysfunctional relationship to self and with self, wherein you have lost yourself to varying degrees in your childhood and lived your life accordingly, always putting others first, people-pleasing, enabling, rescuing, over-focusing on others because you feel, and maybe you're not in touch with the feeling right now, but you have been taught somehow, somewhere in your life to take on shame, that you feel bad, that you don't feel worthy, you have low self-esteem. And I just want to say one last thing here. This is very true of people, and I work with lots of clients and have 30 plus years who will say to me, but some of them are very wealthy individuals. Some of them run corporations. Some of them run huge companies. Some of them are very successful in all kinds of careers. And they'll say, but wait a minute, but no, don't look at your work self. Don't look at your professional self. Don't look at your bank account as a reflection of your relationship to yourself. So that's another place where people have to open to, what does it mean that you have codependency? Why do you have codependency? How can you change that? So please, if you're somebody who's saying, well, the person with BPD, they can't help it, and that unhealthy empathy dump, no, because that empathy is what you need, and more to the point, compassion. You need to put that to self-focus, your own healing recovery journey, and realize, and I know I'm saying something a lot of people know in their heads, right? But you need to take this in and work towards something in a process to know it emotionally. Realize that you are only responsible for you, first and foremostly. And you're not responsible for another human being, whether they go get treatment or they don't. And of course, codependents get really, locked and stuck in the dynamics of the unhealthy dynamics of having that other person there with BPD or NPD to externalize what's in your unconscious out toward and continue the repetition, compulsion, unhealthy relational patterns, and codependency. So don't be worrying about the borderline today. Okay, you need to take care of you starting right now. I hope that was helpful. Please, wherever the circle is, click on there if you haven't subscribed already. Subscribe to the channel. That's supporting the channel. That helps in the algorithm. And hit the notification bell. There's a membership on the channel as well. More coming on the membership on my website coming soon. Going to give you lots of in-depth video and other things coming, and maybe some discounted sessions in there too, on a membership on the website. And then we'll see if it goes with the membership on YouTube or if I morph it over to the website. Don't know. Change is a constant in life, ladies and gentlemen. Codependents don't deal with change very well. Codependents don't adapt easily to change. This is your first challenge. What is that first change you need to make today? Take care.